In crypto, what is happening is decentralization is the opposite of scaling. With EigenDA, decentralization is scaling. And the reason is, in EigenDA, no node ever downloads all the data. Every node only downloads a single chunk of data. So you actually get this exact horizontal stretching of the throughput.
Hello guys, I'm here in Denver with Sreeram.
Hey Louis, great to be here. Looking forward to chat about Gelato, Rollups, and all things Eat Denver.
And of course, EigenLayer, EigenDA, it's all the rage right now. So let's jump straight into it. What do you want to talk about? Like, what's on your mind these days, right? Like, what?
Yeah, one of the big things that I think is going to our mind is on Ethereum. We've done a lot of work at the infra layer, trying to get better scaling, better DA, all of these other stuff. But I think all of this, for it to reach fruition, we need to get strong applications to be building on top of Ethereum. So that's on top of our mind. Like, how do we encourage some of the great developers in the world, application-facing developers, to come to crypto and build applications which guarantee users governance rights, which guarantee users immutable property rights, which guarantee users that when they access an API, it is verified and immutable. So these are the kinds of things I'm kind of most interested in. And I think Rollups are a perfect fit for this.
Yeah, I agree. Personally, I'm super interested in Rollups or app chains. I think that's really where the power of innovation is. And we definitely talk to a lot of developers who now deploy their application as a rollup chain. And yeah, indeed, I think what's really interesting is the world of zero gas rollups. We actually have 3 mainnets going live very soon. All of them are zero gas. But yeah, we have a bunch of new problems there, right? I always say a gas is this really weird double-edged sword tool that we use, right? Like, it's very incentive misaligned, right? Like, gas has the property of DDoS protection, but for the DDoS protection to work well, it has to be expensive, right? So it's very misaligned, actually. You see on Solana, gas is cheap, but you have a lot of spam issues, right? So I think we need to get rid of gas as a DDoS protection mechanism. It is not a good mechanism. It's not our friend. It wants us to extort our users for a lot of value. So yeah, have you thought about that? Like, I know, like, we've been experimenting with stuff at the rollup layer to prevent spam.
Yeah, this is one of the things
paradigm.
I'm super excited about, what Gelato is already thinking about, which is how do we get, like I said, 3 new rollups coming up which don't have any gas. And the benefits of this are a lot. Like, the first one is forget wallet onboarding. Directly, I have an application, I should directly be able to access the crypto application. And you mentioned this point, which is really important. The reason we have gas is for denial of service and spam protection. But this is a very insensitive mechanism or non-discriminative mechanism. It's like whoever pays the most is the ones that get access. We think of crypto as a decentralizing open force. But is that compliant with that ethos is not at all clear. Like the MEV bot that has the most money is going to outraise all the real users who actually want and care about your application. So the superpower, I think, of rollups is that rollups have single sequences. Hey, hot take.
Yeah.
People talk a lot about, rollups should have multiple decentralized sequences. There are cases where you would want it, but there are absolutely a lot of use cases where you would be perfectly happy, even actually much better off with a single central sequencer. And that's because single central sequencers can do admission control, discriminative admission control. They can say, hey, you've interacted with my app 10 times, you're posting good stuff, so I'm going to continue to admit you to do more free stuff on my application till at some point you have to upgrade your plan or do something else. So, currently the end user is faced with all the complexity of the blockchain. What we want is the end user to be guaranteed the rights that accrue from the blockchain, but not be exposed to all the complexity. So an end user may be directly able to interact with, let's say, a social app, which is running on a sequencer, and use and do all the things. The sequencer figures out its own business model for how to interact with the data availability and the consensus blockchain. And what it does is it offers free services to a lot of users who it wants to onboard, and then over time there may be other features like gaming assets or social assets that it's able to monetize off of. So this brings this like Web 2 business model as a possible thing for crypto developers. So that's an exciting thing that.
It's a very, very hot take, and actually it's a hot take that I would share, to be honest. I mean, we are on the record here, but it's always socially unacceptable in Ethereum sometimes to say that anything should not be decentralized. But I think if we go back to the history of rollups, the whole point was to be able to run a centralized sequencer to scale, to not be bogged down by the unscalability issues of decentralization and consensus networks. And that's why we have fraud proofs, and that's why we have ZK proving technology, to still not be at the mercy of that sequencer, right? And for me, the decentralization of a rollup means that anyone can derive the chain from Ethereum again if that sequencer is malicious, or anyone can challenge that sequencer. And if the sequencer is going out of business, you can continue the rollup where it left off, because you have everything on a DA layer like EigenDA, Ethereum, whatever, and you can just derive the chain again and continue from there, right? Like it's a lot about preventing vendor lock-in, right? So that you're, like, if Arbitrum wants to shut down the sequencer one day, ideally someone else could pick up, maybe a consortium of businesses that really value Arbitrum and that just want to keep the chain running, right? So this is, I think, a really important aspect here, but we don't want to have to reinvent consensus at the L2, because we're just going to end up building a worse version of Ethereum, a less decentralized version, and sort of have the worst of both worlds again. Like, so yeah, I don't get it. I'm absolutely happy to change my opinion here if I have to, right? If it turns out that decentralized sequencing is the shit, I'm gonna do it as well. But yeah, that's also my take.
That's an interesting point. Just to add on one thing, the fraud proofs and the other things guarantee that the sequencer is safe, and sequencer replacement guarantees that other people can continue to pick up stuff. And the censorship resistance, I think one of the things that we could improve a bit on the existing rollup structure is how to have faster censorship, faster inclusion guarantees. If I do include some transaction directly on L1 or on EigenDA, then you should be able to force include it, not at a 24-hour delay, but at a few minutes delay. And it's technically possible, and we are having stacks start to improve this. But absolutely agree with the rest of the stuff.
Definitely a hot take. Let's see if we're right in 5 years from now. And if not, we're gonna switch sides.
Of course, so one of the things here is there will be applications which might benefit from a shared sequencer.
Yeah.
And because whatever MEV sharing and all this kind of stuff, but there is, I think, much larger category of applications which absolutely don't need a
Yeah, and a shared sequencer arguably is all the more reason to be centralized, because it's going to be like having it be shared and decentralized is going to be even harder, right?
But not viable.
But yeah, anyways, EigenLayer is launching soonish. There's been a lot of talk. I know I've seen you talking for 1 year now in many places. So when it goes live, do you think, describe to us what you think EigenLayer and EigenDA will look like in 1 year from now, or after the launch? I know people are hyping it up like crazy. Do you want to dampen the mood a bit, or are you it's going to be crazy from day one? What do you think will happen when it launches?
We are not building for day one or year one. We're building for a decade. So what is our decade-long plan? I gave a talk earlier this week on, we call this converting cloud to crypto. That's our project.
Yeah.
How do we move users from cloud to crypto? We are not interested in moving users from L1 to L2.
Yeah.
That's too small, too boring. So a lot of the things that we are building are aligned towards this view. So in one way of thinking about EigenLayer itself is the dividing line between cloud and crypto is decentralized trust. EigenLayer supplies decentralized trust. Now you can build cloud-like applications on top. Somebody can come and build a service like an Oracle, a Keeper, an AI co-processor, a database co-processor, all these kinds of services. Oh, of course, a decentralized sequencer. We have a few favorite projects building that too. But the core idea is that when people build these services and end-user applications, basically integrate some bunch of these services. And what would these end-user applications look like? And my bet is they look like rollups.
Yeah.
That's what an end-user application is. And this is because, a rollup can integrate as whichever set of these services, maybe a decentralized sequencer, maybe a centralized sequencer, maybe an Oracle, maybe no Oracle, maybe this AI, maybe that AI. This kind of flexibility to do integrations while also preserving the properties of the single sequencer that we just talked about, which is instant confirmation, subjective admission control, in addition to fee-based admission control. All these things give it a really superpower. And so that's the vision that we're building for. One thing that we had to do when we think about this kind of cloud scale is how do we ensure that things remain decentralized when you go to cloud scale? And this is where EigenDA fits into kind of the roadmap of EigenLayer. Because EigenDA is designed in such a way that as we have more nodes, the system keeps scaling. So it typically in crypto, what is happening is decentralization is the opposite of scaling, because if you want to make things decentralized, then you can't increase the throughput, you can't increase scale, because you have to make sure everybody is able to catch up, they're able to arrive at consensus, all of these things. With EigenDA, decentralization is scaling. And the reason is, in EigenDA, no node ever downloads all the data. Every node only downloads a single chunk of data. And the number of chunks, the size of each chunk reduces if the total number of node increases. So you actually get this exact horizontal stretching of the throughput. So our launch throughput for EigenDA is 10 megabytes per second, as compared to like 4844, which is tens of kilobytes per second, and other DA systems which are at hundreds of kilobytes per second. And the reason we're able to do this is the horizontal scaling architecture that I just laid out. Not even a consensus node actually needs to download all the data. So that is a superpower of EigenDA. And one of the things when we think about cloud is, and the things we've just been talking about, Louis, is these payment models. How do we kind of like make the economics work for everybody? And one of the big problems we see with something like a shared DA layer is that if you have a shared DA layer, you have unexpected contention. Yuga Labs comes in and drops a new Bored Ape, and now you are like struggling with your gas costs. Your users who are using some other critical service now have to compete with some like Mint, which is ongoing for the next 8 hours, and they're all troubled. I think this is not how the cloud works at all. The cloud works by reserved guaranteed instances. If you look at AWS, 70% of instances are reserved. How can we bring reservation to data availability? This is something we put a lot of thought into. EigenDA has reserved bandwidth. You can come in as a roll-up, a roll app, and register like how much amount of like throughput that you want for the next 1 year, have a fixed cost basis for it, and make sure that now you can tell your users, hey, you can play this game, that game, till this transaction, like you're free. Like, if you want to go more than that, you can pay a premium mode and actually use it. So that's, some of the economic models we have built in. Also, we have a mechanism for rollups to pay in their own native token. So when you reserve a data availability for a year, you don't have to pay in like, USD or ETH, because you're taking an exchange rate risk. Relative to if you're an L1, you have a fixed inflation of your token. You can do that with EigenDA. And finally, you can also use your own native token as a rollup to be staked on EigenDA along with, the native configuration of Ethereum. So the really cool thing it does is bring you the benefit of like having an actual utility for your token, while also participating and benefiting from the larger, trust network that Ethereum offered.
Seems like EigenDA is going to be the flagship sort of project to launch with, the biggest one. I know from our customer base that everybody wants a cheap DA, right? And can't wait for more of these to come online. Thanks a lot, Sreeram, for talking with me today.
Thank you so much, Louis. It is absolutely our goal to scale Ethereum, and one of the reasons the way we built EigenDA is to be an Ethereum-centric data availability layer. So rollups using Ethereum should absolutely consider us as a possibility.
And I really like this. It's a good comparison to the cloud, where you have spot instance and reserve instance, and maybe you can call it dedicated DA, DDA. Who knows?
That's a good way to position it. Yeah. Absolutely.
Cool. Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
You so much.
See you.